Welcome to the first video in the series of rebuilding the Pajero. Today I'm going to get started on the electronics. Plan is to run power for the Ctek DC-DC, so that'll be run from the crank battery at the back, at the front, to this dual battery at the back, ready to connect up to the Ctek. I also need to run the wiring from my roof console to the back. And while I'm in there messing around and I've got parts of the trim out, I'll run the cables for one of my battery monitors that will, it's a cheap one I picked up from Pt2, that will monitor the crank battery as well as the dual battery. That will be ideal for when I'm sitting at the back of the vehicle fishing or whatever, and I just want to keep an eye on what the battery levels are doing if I'm running a stereo or something like that. I do also have a Matson Bluetooth battery monitor which will be connected to the second battery, but that's not a big deal at the moment. So yeah, I'll be running the main wiring from the Ctek, from the main battery to the Ctek. I'll be running the wiring from the roof console through to the back, and as much more as I can get. Unfortunately, I do have to battle the weather. It's forecast for quite a bit of rain, so see how we go. Alright, so one of the first things I've got to do is get these trims off. The plan is to run all my wiring, my main wiring from the crank battery to the DC to DC charger. I want to run all through the footwell and to the back of the vehicle. So, as I can't see any screws, I'm guessing they just pop off. Probably filthy underneath too. Yeah, just a little bit of dirt in there. Might give that a good clean while I'm down here, while I've got them off. And then I will be running all the wiring down in the channel underneath here. So same thing, that one for the front. Guess it's the same for the back. There we go. Got a bit of foam up under here, so there should be a channel under that. And then this will be coming through into the back there. I've got to take the back trim off first. As I've got curtains on, they're going to have to come off first. And that can be just popped out of the way. With the Gen 3s, which mine is, you need to take the top panel off first. And you need to undo the handles at the top here, which are a Phillips head. And there we go, that comes off. Now, this plug's going to be a mongrel to me. Let me get that wire out. Now you may notice while I'm doing this, I've actually got insulation up on the inside there, up in behind all the panels. Even though it's not an awful lot, it does make quite a difference to keep the vehicle cooler. And I've actually got it, although you probably won't see it. If I can get in, nah. Yeah, there we go. I've also got it up in the roof. Okay, so for the black panel, there's 3 screws which I've just removed out of the bottom here. I will need to remove this to get to some screws, and there's more up under the front of the carpet as well that needs to come up. Just remember too, there's also a couple of screws up under there. So, not difficult to get to, but a bit of a pain in the bum. Seatbelts are 17mm. The support, the tie down points in these are 10mm. Make sure when you're doing the seatbelts that you're doing them back up nice and tight again. Remember, they are a safety feature, and I believe they have to be in there by law. Because if the vehicle's registered as a 7-seater, they have to be there. Which mine is registered as a 7-seater. Now that can move out of my way. I'll have to do the front one in a little while. That's out of the way for now. Just drop that back inside, there's the bolt. Get to the screw that's under here. found with some of these that they actually screw into plastic, and that plastic strips out really easy. That's a bit of a stupid design, I think, but maybe it's Mitsubishi's way of trying to save money or make things easier, I don't know. As said, I think it's a bit of a stupid design. Okay, find one at the front. Alright, now you've got all those screws out in the back end. Should just be a matter of pretty much prying it off. This part was a bit of a pain from memory, simply because it folds around the door trim here. So I might start it from the back, and then I can kind of push it forward as I go. As you can see, again, I've run more insulation through the back here. It's probably not the best stuff in the world, but it works. All the trim's off, so now it's easy to run the wire all the way through. You can see I've already got a cable running through here, which would be my lights. I'm pretty much just going to follow that cable, to be honest. Yeah, pretty much just follow that cable, I think. Nice and easy. So I've got a bit of a messy motor. I've done a bit to clean it up already, but she's still a mess. This fuse here is currently for the roof console. So there's a positive and negative, as I said, that connects directly to my battery. So I do often make the mistake of leaving it on. Intention here is to disconnect these wires, and I'm going to drag these through. They come through the main boot that you can see there. So as I disconnect these wires, I'm going to connect the new stuff into it, which will be running from the positive battery terminal to a fuse, obviously, then up to the DC-DC charger at the back. So if I disconnect these and then tape these together, hopefully this should pull through that boot as I'm pulling these ones out. So fingers crossed it works. Okay, so the positive wire is disconnected there. I do need to do the negative, of course. Something I've noticed while trying to do this, even though these terminals are tight as the bolt will, a nut and bolt will allow them, they're still moving. So I might actually look at investing in a new set of terminals to go on here soon, maybe some better quality ones. Okay, so both the positive and negative have now been removed. I've already cut the O-ring off the end of the negative. The positive still got it. I'm going to cut the positive back down here where you can see it's been soldered and wired up. Cut the positive off there, then that way I'm still getting the same sort of length, correct wiring, and I can still reuse the inline fuse if I wish. So stand this tripod up properly. So if I cut that right there, still allows me to reuse the inline fuse, and I'm clear for them. Obviously I'm not going to be able to pull the O-ring back through the rubber grommet, and if I do I'll probably end up causing more damage, and I definitely won't get the fuse back through there, so it had to come off. I have noticed with the wiring that I'm using, it's got insulation on one end. I plan to have this side on this end inside underneath the bonnet, and then I'll drag the rest of it through. So take this end off to these wires, and hopefully that will allow me to pull through nice and easy. I will overlap a fair bit so that I've got plenty of room to try and offer the tape to hold. Obviously the less tape on there, the less it's going to hold, so fingers crossed this will be enough to hold it and pull it through that grommet. Okay. Now one trick I have heard of when trying to pull cables through rubber grommets is a bit of silicone spray. So I'll be grabbing that in a second. I've got some WD-40 which will do the same job. Probably should have untangled this from all the wires first, so I'm not trying to pull everything through, but anyway, I'll do that now. Now that hole that you can see there is where all the wiring is going to come through. Fun job I have now is finding the correct one, and pulling it through. I believe, I can't reach it from the position I'm in, but I believe I know which one it is. So I believe this is the cable. Being that it's dirty, I'd probably say it is. It was originally, from memory, connected to a light at the rear, which I've now rewired, so I believe this is the right one, and it seems to be coming pretty easy. Okay, there's the wires that I've taken off the battery, and now for there's the electrical tape and the new wiring. Beautiful, nice, actually came through really easy with that silicone spray. So whoever it was, I think it was Den Monkey that mentioned that. Thank you, it's absolutely brilliant. Okay, so that's been pulled through. As you can see, the black insulation's going all the way to the boot. I've tucked it up just at the top here, and I plan to put the fuse just in here. Fuse will sit about there. So that should be fine. There's plenty of cable there for me. And you can see there's, if it focuses, there we go. And as you can see, there's plenty laying on the ground, so that should be more than enough to get to the back for me. Now that I've run that, obviously there's not enough of the cable for my roof console. We'll have to extend that, obviously. So I can't just drag that straight through with it. So I'll take the tape off in a second. I'll run the cable for the DC to DC, I'll run that to the back, and then I'll work out the cable for the new one, for the roof console. Okay, so even though it is hard to see, I've got a wire loom already running down to the floor here. Looks like it does go down under the carpet, and these are the two wires that I need to lead to the back. So what I'm doing is just going to run them down and cable tie them down. Don't care about my colours, they'll be hidden. Cable tie them to the other one so they stay nice and neat and tidy. Okay, I've seen other ways of doing this, but obviously you've got this trim here, and short of ripping the seatbelt off, which I couldn't be bothered with, I've seen people use yellow tongue. I'm just using a old coat hanger that's been cut down. I use the same one to thread my curtains. Again, I'm just going to use some electrical tape, tape the two of them together, and try and pull this cable straight through. It has already come through the other side, so I know it's going to work, or should work. And as suspected, pulled through nice and easy. So pull that tight, seat it correctly in position here, behind there, and it's now towards the back of the car. While you've got these sections of the trims off around the footwell and that, might as well give it a bit of a wipe down, because as you can see there's a shitload of dirt stuck in them. If you've ever been off-road and bogged like I have, and in plenty of mud, you'll find that it's gathered under there and you never know about it until times like this. Okay, now I've got my wire run all the way to the back. As I said, I'll be building a cupboard up on this shelf, up on this side here, and the DC to DC charger is going to be going up in there. So I've got enough room to run it up, plenty of cable to come up into the DC, and I've got leftovers there. Only drama I have found now is the wiring for the roof console. Obviously isn't going to be long enough to come all the way through. I do have some 50 amp wire, but I really don't want to go screwing running 50 amp wire for something that only draws a few amps. So I'm waiting on a mate. Gonna wait on a mate, then we'll head to Super Cheap or Autobarn. I'll grab some more 15 amp wire, which is what I've used here, and I'll just extend that through. Just 2 to 3 meters of that should be plenty. As you can see, I haven't connected that main wire up yet. None of this is connected to the battery. Quite simply, because this is a positive and the body of your vehicle is a earth, if I was to connect this up and tap it anywhere on the body, it's going to short out. So obviously haven't done any of that yet. I'll leave that. Once I've got that extension cable for the roof console, I'll then run that through to the back here, and that will basically, being that I've got an inline fuse for that, I will probably run that directly to the battery rather than into a fuse box and everything else. I'll probably run that straight to the battery. and then that way I can keep monitor on what's going on. I do have a voltage meter up in that roof console, and everything in there is individually fused, so keeping it there is not a big issue. And again, if I run that wire through, connect it directly to the battery, run an inline fuse, then I'll get a more accurate voltage reading out of the voltmeter in the console. I've also got this Ridge Rider one, which Super Cheap had on special. Focus. Super Cheap had on special for $5. So I picked this up, and this reads dual batteries, so I'll be connecting this in as well. It is a little bit short. I probably could cut some of the other one off and just splice that, but I may have some extra wire there too, so I'll check that out when we get to it. Okay, now I've got the wires, I've got my main power wire run through, that's all the way to the back. This smaller wire here is a controller, not a controller, a monitor for my main battery, and it will also monitor the second battery. What I'm doing now is the wiring for the roof console, because that wasn't quite long enough, nowhere near long enough. So I'm doing that now. I've got 15 amp cable, which is the same as what I've run up the top. Had to duck out and buy some more of that, because I just simply didn't have any. So 15 amp twin core cable. I've run it from the back through to here to work out where it's going to join up. Now I will solder them, heat shrink them, etc, etc. Get this section worked out, and then that'll be the final bit of wiring, I believe, to come from the front to the back. Then it's a matter of connecting up the solar, the DC to DC, and it should charge from the alternator then. Well, once it's all connected to the battery at the front, it should charge from the alternator. Okay, so all the leads are under the back. I ended up following the original wiring line that comes through, cable tied to them, running them down behind this bracket, because as mentioned before, I still want to be able to put the third row seats in. Measuring them out, approximate length to the battery. Now obviously my battery is going to be sitting, or is sitting about here, so there's a bit of extra cord there, but that's fine, I'm happy with that. I need to splice this now, and I'm going to install the inline fuse. So again, another dodgy soldering job by me. That will be obviously to the positive, then the black I'll just wire straight to the negative, then that will power everything on the roof console for me. So first thing I'm going to do, set that off. Hopefully I do a better soldering job on this. Alright, so that's all soldered. Bit of a neater job than last time. It's got a 15 amp fuse in there already, so that's fine, ready to go. All I need to do now is put an O-ring on, and if I can pick it up, the negative end. Then I can start connecting up the controllers and stuff to like the battery monitor that I've just run. I can start connecting up the Ctek to my second battery, and I'm almost ready to start connecting up the alternator to the Ctek, which is great. Finally bloody getting there. Okay, so I've connected the roof console. You can see that's lit up there. I've got 12.8, 12.9 volts thereabouts. The UHF is currently on, which is the flickering light, and that's drawing 0.2 amps. And you can see here I've got, might help if I zoom out a bit, the Ridge Rider battery monitor as well, and that's reading, that's telling me about 12.6 upwards, so I'm still nice and healthy there. So that's just a quick test fit. There's nothing so far smoking, which is always bloody good news. So there we go with that parts. Those couple of things are wired in and ready to roll. Happy with that. Now lastly, I've just connected this little Matson Bluetooth battery monitor. They're $50 in Super Cheap. and that should send me all the data I need back to my phone. So there we go, 13.11 volts. I'm getting 3 different readings in regard to, there we go, 12.9, which is what the roof console's reading and about what the Ridge Rider's reading. That will monitor all charging and usage and everything else, so quite happy with that. That should do me alright to just keep an eye on things when we're at camp or whatever, and I couldn't be bothered coming to the car to check this one or the front one. I've got the Bluetooth. If I'm sitting at the back of the car, I can just check that one out, or if I'm driving, I can check the roof console, and I always know what's happening with the battery then. So looking at the sky, I think we're about to be in for some more rain. I think I might just pack it up for today and then get back into it tomorrow. It is about 4 PM now, so come back in tomorrow and hopefully finish that off, get the solar panel on the roof, get the DC to DC charger in, get the solar panel installed. Then the battery side of things is done. I can then build the side console. I can start putting the trim back on a bit, build the cupboard for the side, work out exactly where the DC to DC and everything is getting mounted. Do all that as I'm building everything rather than chopping and changing and stuffing around. And yeah, fingers crossed everything goes good there, and hopefully have all that done by tomorrow afternoon. Alright, so that's power from my dual battery to my roof console. Battery monitor's in. I haven't connected everything up to the main crank battery yet, and I haven't got the DC to DC charger in yet, so I'll do that tomorrow. I'll make that a separate video. Hopefully that'll be the solar DC to DC and building the cupboard here. If you've enjoyed what I've done so far, subscribe, click like. Yeah. I don't know, I'm not really going to be one of these people that cries out for likes and whatnot, but hey, if you do, subscribe and check it out. If I get enough subscribers, I might do more videos. I'm definitely going to do all of the fit out for this, go through in some reasonable detail as to what I'm doing with everything in here. So again, I will be building the cupboard there, shelf in the back here, drawer on this side, the Waco CD30 drawer fridge will be going in on this side. I will be mounting the battery properly and stuff like that. Today, it's been a bit of a pain in the ass because it's raining, it's not, it's raining, it's not. So, fingers crossed I can get the whole thing done by the weekend. Wish me luck.